So it's okay to not be okay, friends. I realized this week that I'm not okay. Particularly, I'm talking about the political situation. I'm talking about Donald Trump's presidency. I'm talking about what he's doing. I'm talking about what he's doing to immigrants. I'm talking about what he's doing to minorities, to the LGBTQ plus community, what he is trying to do with healthcare, just what he's doing, all of his agenda to take us backwards, his agenda to destroy our alliances, just all of his agenda. Like, I'm not okay with it, and I'm not okay inside. Like, I tried to shove it all down. Like, I filmed a video called "I'm Not Going to Waste My Time on Donald Trump." And I'm not sure, as of recording this video, I'm not sure if I'm going to release that video or not. I'll have to watch it again and see what I say and see if I'm still at that place inside where I agree with what I said before I release it. So it's possible that it's been released by the time you see this video. It's possible that it hasn't, and it's possible that it will never be released. But if you'd like to see that video, feel free to let me know in the comments. Or if you absolutely don't want to see that video, that's fine too. I think I titled it something like, "Stop giving an F about Donald Trump. It's wasting your time. It's wasting your life," something like that. And in some way, I agree with that. But there's also a level where I realize now that I was just suppressing all of that, all of the emotions that I was feeling, all of the anger, all of the sadness, all of the frustration that our country could be moving in what I view as a much more positive direction, and now it's being taken back. Now it's possible, because US aid is paused to Ukraine, that I could lose friends because the Russians may gain a lot of ground and be able to do a lot more horrible things, take a lot more territory, kill a lot more people. It's also very possible that friends I have who are first generation immigrants, some of them DACA recipients, are going to be deported because of the Trump administration. You know, the LGBTQ plus friends that I have, I don't know what's going to happen with them. You know, there's just a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. I'm concerned for a lot of different people. Healthcare, with RFK Jr. and his incredibly anti-science, anti-vax perspective. Like, healthcare is being gutted, and it's horrifying to see because, you know, one, we're setting ourselves up for disaster if there's another pandemic, but even just regular healthcare, that's insane. That's just insane what is happening. And he's really alienating us from our allies, our trade partners. I mean, he just tried to do a trade war, and I've seen that, like, Canada, that's on hold for 30 days, but Mexico, that's still going forward. And so I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what is going to happen with this administration, and we're just in the first couple weeks. And I've got to admit that I got feelings about it. Like, it just burst forth the other day, because it crossed my mind that, oh man, my friends who are first generation immigrants, who are DACA recipients, who are here right now legally because of DACA, Trump's not going to renew that. Trump's going to do everything he can to get everyone that he can who is from Latin America out of the United States because he's a racist bastard, in my view. I can't pretend that that doesn't bother me. I can't pretend that I can just go on living my life unbothered and I'm not going to be, you know, worried about them, or that I'm not going to be affected by the things that Donald Trump is doing, that his administration is doing, that they are pushing for. I can't pretend that I am not greatly disturbed and bothered by the Christo-fascism of the Republican Party, that I do not want to live in a state run by the church, whatever church that happens to be. I don't want to live in a state that is where the church is intermingled with the government and laws are decided by what was written 2 to 6,000 years ago by a bunch of people in a very, very specific geography and a very specific time, some of which I frankly very much disagree with. There's certainly some things in the Bible I agree with, but those things the Republican Party honestly doesn't tend to give a shit about. They don't give a shit about all the verses about taking care of the widows and the orphans and the foreigners within your land. A lot of those are Old Testament verses where God's basically telling the Israelites, like, hey, take care of the widows, take care of the orphans, take care of the poor, take care of the foreigners, because you were once foreigners in Egypt. But they're very happy to be like, kill the homosexuals. Like, literally, that is where the fuck we are at with the Republican Party. They are happy to throw out and quash and ignore all of the compassion, the empathy, the sympathy, the kindness that is preached by Jesus, is in the Old Testament, but everything violent, destructive, they are very happy that, like, that is their God. Their God wants to kill the people who are not like them. Their God wants to deport the people who are not like them. Their God wants to prosper just them. They very much like the tribal God who ordered Israel to slaughter the Canaanites and the Amalekites and attack the Philistines and so forth. That's the God that the Republican Party embraces. They don't embrace the other parts, the parts that maybe those of us who used to be or are Christians, I'm in the used to be category, but still value. Like, I still find a lot of value in some of the things that Jesus taught, some of the, certainly not all of the 10 Commandments, but some of the 10 Commandments, don't murder seems like a pretty good idea to me. Treat others the way you want to be treated seems like a good idea to me. The times where Jesus talks about what makes someone his disciple, which is, that talking about visiting the poor, visiting the sick in prison, all of these things, taking care of people. Those are the people who are his disciples. That's the verses that the Republican Party does not give a damn about. And it disturbs me. It really does. And I can't pretend that it doesn't. And keeping it all inside, it worked for a little while. And then it burst forth. Like, it burst forth thinking about, my friends who might be deported. I met them through a ministry to migrant farm worker camps back when I lived in Washington State. And I spent 7 years in that ministry very, very consistently, pretty much weekly for several of those years, visiting migrant camps or some of the migrants in their homes, doing ministry, even just hanging out with them, getting to know their kids. Again, a lot of the DACA recipients are their kids, whom I, developed very close relationships, like an older brother. It was almost like a big brothers and sisters kind of situation where I had, these kids, and I felt like their older brother, because I was not old enough to feel, like their dad by any means. Some of them were only a couple of years younger than me, because this was in high school, college kind of time in my life. But it was a really, really meaningful time. And I got to see much closer the good and the bad and the challenges and what really works and what doesn't and stuff in the migrant community. And I can tell you that the Republicans, especially Trump with his nasty racist rhetoric, are full of shit. And I will die on that hill. And so it's disturbing, it's upsetting what he's doing and how many people are cheering it on. Like, I feel like I don't know a lot of the people in my country, and I am in a very red state. I'm in kind of a very small blue pocket, but I'm in a red state. And so there's still a lot of red, in my pocket, but, there's more of us as far as like our elected officials. We do have some Democrats in our very, very small, city, county, surrounded by just a sea of red as far as the eye can see. So I know that my views would not be popular, and I'm figuring out how do I effectively, meaningfully express those views, because I stand by a lot of what I said in the not going to worry about Donald Trump, I'm not going to give a fuck about Donald Trump video, because a lot of what I talked about is that, like, the online discourse and the just being angry online and the fighting with people is a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. It's not a good thing. It doesn't help anyone. But the truth of the matter is that being silent is not okay either. Like, I thought when I made that video, I talked about that I felt like that was just, the social pressure to show people that I'm the good guy. And I realized that's not true. Because by myself, in my room, I went back and I'd made some videos about that time in the migrant ministry. One of them was very specifically because this Republican hatred of migrants is not new. I made a video where I showed the camps. I showed some of our interactions. I showed us, teaching the kids Bible verses and feeding them and making sure that they had supplies, and just like a lot of the stuff that the youth group that I was a part of that we were doing. And I put Bible verses in there that I was referring to earlier in this video, like talking about the migrants, talking about, love the foreigner, take care of the foreigner, don't defraud your workers, all of this stuff, because there was pushback even in the church that I was attending. And so I made that video to point out to people that this is what Christ would do. This was even what Yahweh in the Old Testament said to do. And that video made me cry. It made me cry the other day when I watched it. And then I watched some of the others that I'd made, and, they made me cry. Not because I was, sad about that time, or that, I do miss that time in many ways, actually, but it was because I don't know what's going to happen to them. Like, I don't know what's going to, a lot of that stuff was about 10 years ago, so a lot of these kids, call them kids, but they're adults now. And I don't know what's going to happen to them. And I don't know what's going to happen to all the other, I only touched a small fraction of the migrant community in that time, but I don't know what's going to happen to all of them. We've seen the videos, we've seen the photos of, parents separated from their children, just all the horrible stuff that's going on. We've seen that. And it just breaks my heart, because I can empathize, I can sympathize with what's going on. I can put myself in that scenario. I can think about what would happen, how I would feel, how I might end up feeling if those families that I was so close to, if some of them or all of them are forced to leave the country, if some of them are thrown into fucking Guantanamo fucking Bay. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck bullshit is fucking going on? These people were not committing crimes. They were not stealing. They were not harming. They were not doing anything that is deserving of punishment. Of course, I believe that if somebody, rather they're here legally, rather they're born here, rather they're here illegally, if somebody commits, a murder or a rape or theft, yeah, they should absolutely be punished under the law. Of course, if I did something like that, I should be fucking punished under the law. I believe that. I believe in law and order, but not in the way that Republicans do. Republicans want to use law and order as a weapon to remove everybody that they don't like, everybody who doesn't speak the same language as them, everybody who doesn't look like them, everybody who has a different belief system than them. And it's okay that it's frustrating. It's okay that it's painful. It's okay. I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have empathy. I know there's been a big campaign in a lot of evangelical circles and a lot of Republican circles to make empathy be listed as a sin, be a bad thing, that somehow empathy is a bad thing. Like, what is fucking going on? And let me say that again. What is fucking going on when empathy is considered a bad thing. Pay attention. Whenever empathy is considered a bad thing, those people are on the wrong side of history. Whenever sympathy is considered a bad thing, whenever listening and understanding to somebody's life experience is a bad thing, those people are not good people. Really, anybody who is not willing to listen to people who are suffering, who is not willing to listen with empathy, who says empathy is bad, they are not a good person. There is no way to justify not having empathy for people who have nothing, who are struggling to feed their children, who just want to be able to express who they are, to just be safe in their communities. I'm talking about immigrants. I'm talking about the LGBTQ plus community, especially trans right now. They're not feeling safe. And immigrants are risking so much and bringing us more and more into these draconian immigration laws, cutting off a lot of legal avenues for immigration like Trump's doing, trying to cut off the refugee, the asylum seekers, taking down the app that lets people register once they're in the United States, like all of this stuff. He's trying to crush the ways that people can come into the United States legally. And that's going to force more illegal immigration, more dangerous practices. The coyotes are going to be able to exploit more people. It's not okay. And it's okay to not be okay with it. And it's okay to be upset by it, rather privately, publicly. And I think the truth is, rather than not giving a fuck about Donald Trump, it's figuring out how to balance giving a fuck about what is happening to our country, what we are turning into, with not letting it completely derail the good times and the life that we want to live. We don't want to let them win by stealing all of our hope, all of our joy. But we can't pretend that what's happening is not happening, and we can't abandon people who are suffering. We cannot let ourselves be silent. We cannot let ourselves watch other people be abused and destroyed and say nothing. But we also have to find a time to recharge ourselves, to laugh with friends, to, in my case, be creative, make these YouTube videos, make short films, to work on my business so that I can make money and afford to live life and not be where I've been the past couple years, really struggling financially. And finding that balance is going to be the challenge of the next 4 years for those of us who have a moral compass, for those of us who care about immigrants, who care about the disabled, who care about people with health conditions, who care about the elderly, who care about trans people, who care about gay people, who care about the entire LGBTQ plus community, who care about people of different races, black people, other minorities, all the people that the Trump administration is going to try and destroy, even those of us who are atheists, those of us who do not conform to the Christian alt-right view that they are pushing. We are going to have to stand up, and I don't know what that looks like. I don't know, because it's not just fighting with people online. The people who are behind Trump know what he is. They understand that he is a convicted felon. They understand that he is a rapist. They understand that he is a grifter and that he wants to bring our country back to a time where oppression was okay. And they're fine with that. So arguing with them online, or even to some extent in person, is not the way. I don't know what the way is. I don't know how we affect change effectively, but I'll be trying to figure that out, because we can't roll over and play dead and put earplugs in and pretend everything is not happening around us the way that many people did in Nazi Germany. We can't. And we can't the way that the Russian people are pretending that Russia's not doing what it is doing to Ukraine. We cannot. We have to stand up. But we need to stand up strategically, because the goal of Trump and the goal of Project 2025 and all those who support him is to wear us out. It's to exhaust us. It's to make us unable to effectively combat them. And so we have to figure out, how do we take care of ourselves and how do we stand up for what is right? Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. You can feel free, if you're a Trumper, you can troll me, that's fine. If you're somebody who thinks like me, if you're an ally, chime in. Let's build some community. That is one thing we can do online, is build community. Those of us who understand what's happening, understand it in the historical context, and aren't baffled by Trump's bullshit. Have a great day.